What's the basis for spaceships except for conveyance to escape the matrix? No, but it's more than you've seen it do. I promise you that my bars is rap genius proof, and I'd rather take the scenic route. I'm not the type that you see.
Alright, welcome to Hold This Mic, and I am Josh Chris Burchard, and I'm joined by...
Fly, Eagles, fly, on the road to victory. All right, that's not it. I'm Kill
We
Vix.
can't do that whole thing. No, we can't.
No?
No.
No?
I'm gonna edit it out if we do.
Okay.
Even though I love the Eagles.
Yeah, but hit 'em low, hit 'em high, watch those Eagles fly. All right. I'm a Kill Vix.
All right. And this is Hold This Mic, and Hold This Mic is recorded here in Southwest Philly. I've been saying Southwest Philly. It's technically
South. I think we've got some
south.
emails of people.
Yeah, we're like Southwest is more up at like 20th.
Yeah,
25th.
you get it. Well, at least like the 30s, you know.
30s.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave that West out from here on, even though part of me wants to be a little more distinct and like say
Yeah.
this niche part of the South Philly that we're from, but we're not really from there. All right, so it's been a big day in the National Football League. Am I correct?
Yes, it has been. It's been a wonderful day.
It's been a wonderful day, and it started with our hero Colin Kaepernick taking a knee during the national anthem. This was a few seasons ago.
A year ago.
And as we went over in the last episode, Akil, walked us through Colin Kaepernick having done that and what went with that. But now, Donald Trump made a statement. I'm not going to say what he said because he said something, and then there was a big wave of reaction and resistance in the NFL because of it. And Akil, please fill us in.
Well,
take it away.
Well, look, let me tell you, little homie Trump wanted to get froggy because he hasn't done anything, hasn't passed anything, can't pass anything. We'll talk about this later, but healthcare went down in flames again. Third time. Yeah. So, as usual, when these types of things happen, he's got to say some stuff to get his base riled up. And now, he was down in Alabama, I believe, stumping for Luther Strange, running to replace Jeff Sessions. And instead of talking about what a wonderful man Luther Strange was, he decided to take a break and talk about the continuing protests in the NFL of players taking a knee or sitting down or locking arms or putting their hands up, their fist up during the national anthem to call awareness, to just generally make a statement about police brutality in America. So Trump knows that his fan base is racist, and in order to get back in their good graces for yet again failing upon failing, he had to call these NFL players out. And when we had our last episode, and we were talking about this, and I made remarks about how it was wonderful to see all the terribly shitty quarterbacks in the NFL and all their teams lose because no one had the ball to sign Colin Kaepernick. Well,
you were pretty hard on those guys.
I was pretty hard on those guys. And you know what? I'm here to say that they still don't have the balls to sign Colin Kaepernick, but at least every team in the league has some type of demonstration today. Whether you want to say it's a demonstration in support of Black Lives Matter and making a statement on police brutality, or you want to say it's a statement against Trump and being, bringing some his trademark brand of vulgarity to our already pretty vulgar sport, but whatever, potatoes, tomatoes. People stood up and they made a stand. You had owners down there. Our own Philadelphia Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie was locking arms with players. Now,
right.
Of course, Jeffrey Lurie also had earlier put out a statement about how he doesn't like it when players don't stand for the national anthem. But again, I'm gonna,
he hedged and said, we'll lock arms, and that's what I'm going to do, and that's good. That's
and Lori's a centrist Democrat at heart, so that's perfect for him. Whatever. I can't expect more than that,
Right.
But wait, what's this music? Who's coming out with a steel chair to slap Trump upside his head? It's Tom Brady, his best friend, joining in protest, locking arms, if not outright taking a knee or doing something like that, at least showing solidarity with people who are doing it. And
right.
That's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool, and I'm sure that a week from now we'll forget all about this because we'll have declared war on North Korea, and Trump will have made chimichangas illegal and a whole bunch of other different bullshit. But for right now, feels pretty good.
Yes.
And the Eagles won.
And Akil got his fantasy league points that he was thinking about this whole week. Before he was thinking about
more important than anything. More important about Black liberation or income inequality or fascist in the White House. Priorities. Fantasy football. I know it's important.
Right. All right. So there's this incredible thing happens in one of the most major sources of one of the biggest sport in the country in terms of viewership of games and fan base and how huge football is for America. And do you think there's going to be like a lot of ripples from this because people will be responding to this and reacting to this in the media, and people will be dads will be talking to their kids about the importance of a player's right to voice their opinion even if they don't necessarily agree with Black Lives Matter, or is this like a turning point, or is this a flashbulb moment or whatever that like you said, something is going to happen in another week and we're going to be talking about something else, and we're just going to be disappointed because of the changing nature of the public attention.
Yeah. Well, everything you just said, I agree.
That was an either or question.
No, but I think that's it. Both. It's somewhere, someplace in some corner of America, this will make a difference. This will either, maybe. Across generations, you have sports fans, you have the young generation who will maybe call their parents out for being a little bit too problematic on this issue, or maybe seeing the league take a unified stance will soften the hearts of some people who are hardliners on this stupid issue of oh my god, you're disrespecting the flag. We disrespect the flag every single fucking day. People, right. How many people out there are wearing American? Well, no, how many people out there are wearing foul? No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the people out there that are wearing American flag underwear right now, or
Right.
There's a flag code, and none of us respect it.
There's flag bandanas, and people wear them to concerts and sweat through them and then toss them in the trash.
Yeah. I mean, what do most people do during the national anthem when you're watching TV at home? You're grabbing nachos. You're taking your last dump before the game starts. No one cares about the anthem. It's always been about the fact that black people were getting uppity. Black athletes were getting uppity, and it's always been a problem in all the major sports. And you know what? It's cool because you see the NBA. The NBA is down the ride. The NBA's always been down the ride. If you you just call them up and they'll show up in the Chevy two-door ready to roll.
Right.
So Steph Curry and LeBron and Kevin Durant, they're all lending their voice. I mean, it might be a while before we see hockey and baseball jump on, but
Plus, I mean, okay, black and white players have the opportunity to use their platform to help a cause. So a lot of times it's a charity. The player will team up with a group of fundraisers and they'll get a lot of money together, and they'll have a giant check that says $5 million, and they'll hand it over to the Leukemia Foundation or something like that. But what the part of the part of the problem is that, you know, or part of the double standard is that, you know, if you're a white player, you know, and you object to something politically, like you have lots of avenues for expressing that, and you do if you're black too. You have lots of avenues for expressing your dislike or your you know, disagreement with what's going on, say politically. But if you're white and you choose to voice that vocally, symbolically, somehow, you know, I mean, in my sense is like you're going to be treated one way, and if you're black and you do that, then chances are you're going to be treated another way. Like what you just said about this being a matter of like black people seeing black players acting quote unquote uppity. So, I mean, do you think there's a double standard? Do you think there's like a, you know, between white and black players, between how? I mean, it's hard to draw a comparison because there's not a lot of like white players who are like getting, you know, shot in the streets for not for doing nothing. And
so it's the thing. It's like when you see the people who are against it, a lot of them use their reasoning is that sports is sports and you should respect the game, and like, you know, like we should leave politics out of sport, right? Like no matter who you are, no matter what you believe in, when you go on the field of play, it's about your teammates, it's about winning. Then in a greater sense, it's about the spirit of competition, and you should leave all that stuff out the door. And the privilege isn't so much that the white players could make a political statement, because they by and far they usually don't. You know, you've got players who are noted for having some like conservative opinions and some liberal opinions, but usually that doesn't make it to the football field. So a lot of these people do, you know, they do walk the walk that they preach when they say that. I'm talking about Peyton Manning. But but on the other hand, right, like they have the luxury to leave it at sports because their issues aren't causing people to die, right? So like, you know, if you're a white player and you feel very strongly about, I don't know, I'm going to be racist here and say tax reform. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, you really, really care about tax reform. Well, you don't have, like, you're still a millionaire. So like, you don't need to jeopardize your career by making a statement on tax reform because it's not actually hurting you that much. But when you're a black player and you might even have family or you might know someone personally, or just being like a human being and seeing people that look like you being killed for no other reason than what they look like, that's something that, you know, it's a call to action. It's a call for you to say something about it. And, you know, that's gonna fall on black players and black people more than it's gonna fall on white people. And that's not to say that white people are right there in the fight. Like I said, you know, I'm not saying he's in the fight, but Tom Brady showed respect for it, and that's big. You had a white woman who was singing the national anthem in a game take a knee at the end of the national anthem.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And a black guy did it in the earlier game. So I mean, obviously, as usual, a black guy did it first. But but yeah. So like, this is a topic that's about the black experience in America, and no matter how it was brought up, yeah, let's, you know, if Aaron Rodgers chose to make a statement first, then maybe it would be a little bit different. You wouldn't have the ire. Obviously, he wasn't going to get blacklisted from the league because he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. But yeah, it would have been a little different. But still, the overall thing is that America doesn't like to hear black people stick up for themselves, no matter what.
Right.
And you know, when white people don't have to stick up for themselves as much.
No, right, yeah.
You guys are doing all right.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Okay, let's move on. Next topic. There was a very, very last moment, like ending seconds. Can I put it any other way? Maybe not. healthcare bill that went through that did not pass.
Did not pass, but it was very close.
It was close, and per usual, a few moderate Republican senators, including McCain,
John McCain,
and the senator from Alaska, Murkowski, and one other Republican senator.
Yeah.
Sure.
I should have looked it up.
We don't want to give them too much credit, but
no,
they.
Yeah, you're a human beings. Yay! Congratulations.
Right. So they, the bill was defeated, but just the mere fact that they were going to take this bill that was kind of reshuffled based on some silly medical right-wing medical guy's opinion, right? Wasn't there some doctor involved?
You know what was involved? Tax cuts. This was the donors saying, you need to do this so we can have our freaking tax cuts.
Right.
And they were like, whatever you can get out, just get the fuck out, or else we're not gonna this has been sources are saying this, that
right.
The donors are basically saying, you guys need to pass a healthcare repeal that gives us our ability to take a huge, tax cuts in the future, or else we're not going to donate to their campaign. And that's what they did. You had senators that were, not really enthusiastic about this bill they were going to vote for. They were hoping to just ram it through and hope that gerrymandering and voter suppression would keep their seats safe.
Right.
And, kudos to John McCain, yet again.
Yeah.
Riding in. And then, you know what? The heartache is that this bill was named after his best friend, Lindsey Graham.
Right.
And he had to
shut him down.
Yeah, can you imagine that really awkward cocktail hour?
Yeah, I'm sure they're gonna be buddies again in a matter of 10 minutes, but
as long if we need to murder North Korea or
yeah, something that'll unify the they'll unify around war or money or something real quick. So what does this say for the state of the Republican Party that they with something that I think we've already known all along, which is that they're like you said, it's about tax cuts, and it's still about cutting government programs. So it's about reducing the amount of federal expenditures so that they can lower taxes so that they can afford the tax cuts that are going to the wealthiest 1% or whatever, whoever they want to benefit the most. And this kind of move just seems so pathetic. It just seems like what they were trying to do would, I think, have kicked more people off of Medicaid than the last one.
Well, we wouldn't have gotten a CBO score until after they had the vote.
Right.
So we wouldn't even know. I don't know if the CBO will still do a score, but I'm curious because the way it was set up, first of all, it was moving everything to block grants and hard caps. And, anybody who knows anything about healthcare policy will tell you that block grants and hard caps, that's just saying we're going to kill people.
Right. That's just saying it's up to the states, and the states could never afford to manage that level of a program by themselves. And then leaving up to the state's discretion about pre-existing conditions or minimum coverage standards, all that stuff would have just eventually it would have been disastrous, and everyone knew it. Right.
And this was the last ditch attempt from the donors to push this through so they can get their tax cuts. They had to do it before the 30th, because that's the end of the budget reconciliation period.
And also, they could pass it with a mere majority. Right. And if they had to wait I don't know how long they had to wait, but they would have been able to pass it. They would have to have had 60 votes.
Yeah, after the end of this month, they'll need 60 votes for anything. This is the last month for budget reconciliation.
Okay, yeah.
So, and then I think this just kind of proves that we have the way our political parties are set up right now. I feel like we have one party who its base ideology is very, very popular, but it refuses to run on it or fight for it or implement it on the left wing. And on the right wing, we have a party whose base ideology isn't very popular, and yet they win elections because they run on it as a populist message. They run on it as, here, we're going to do these things and it's going to benefit you. But then when it's time to actually govern, people see what they actually meant, and it's like, well, no, that sounds terrible.
Because they run it on, you're an average American, you want tax cuts, don't you? Like, you want, the government off your back. Yeah. And people think about it and you're like, yeah, I do. Because when you think about it, those are reasonable things to vote for if you're just thinking about it in a kind of like narrow way. And so they're handing the people they're feeding people lines about, limited government and tax cuts, and they're also feeding them loads of bigoted and anti-left and anti-progressive statements, and they're feeding them. They're all feeding off that too, and it's like a toxic. It's like some sort of what's that stuff you brew when you're when you don't have a license to brew alcohol?
Oh, moonshine.
Moonshine, yeah, it's like moonshine. It's like dangerous. It's like gets you really, really ripped and you're blind and you can't see shit, and you just want to like go ahead and like take your shotgun out back and start like firing into the woods, like
yeah.
I mean, or into the suburban neighborhood where you live, where everyone's pretty much thinking the same thing anyway. So yeah, I mean, it's just this very like well oiled. I don't know if it's a well-oiled machine or if it's like
it's not well-oiled.
No, it's not well-oiled, but it's fueled by, I think it's fueled by a sort of hatred and vindictiveness that actually drives people to go out and be conservative activists and get out and get shit done, because they're that part of them that feels like they need what their vision of justice is, or whatever their vision of, whatever their vision of coming to of getting what they deserve, basically.
Yeah.
And that's, it's completely false, and it's hurting them a lot of the times. A lot of Trump's base are getting hurt by his policies. And yeah, it's pathetic. It's terrible.
The conservative motivation, I feel like, when people get active and really like push conservative ideology and especially when it comes to like social issues, and to a point economic issues, it's all about resentment, man.
Yeah.
They're so resentful.
So pissed.
They're so pissed.
Yeah.
They're so hurt. They're so fearful. They're so mad, and they're so pissed. Like, you got,
angry.
They're angry, and like, and they think that it's we're these smug liberal elites who like live in these ivory towers and study these like philosophers with weird to pronounce names like Foucault, and like we're just this, we think we're better than them, but we've never worked a hard day's work in our lives, and it's all about this resentment for this like caricature that they think that we represent,
right? And
you don't have to have logic after that. You just don't.
No.
I'm thinking that we're at the end of using hypocrisy as a debate tactic. It doesn't work anymore.
Right.
We could point out a million different hypocritical things that Republicans have said and done, and it doesn't mean shit.
In fact, you can use hypocrisy as a tactic, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because like, I think the hashtag resist crowd is still like not learning this lesson, because you'll see you go on social media and you'll see like, oh, Trump's still using a private email server after he went after Hillary.
Right,
Or like
but yeah.
Trump said that
It doesn't matter to any of them.
Right, Trump attacked Hillary for having Goldman Sachs employees. Now he has the most Goldman Sachs employees of the last presidents.
All true.
It's all true, but it doesn't fucking matter.
No, it doesn't matter to...
Because the person who's saying this to you, the person who's trying to convince you of this, and why, what it means for these people that you put your faith in, it's because it's coming from our snooty liberal elites.
Right, and we're too good for, we're too good for people that, do, I guess, I don't know, that liberals think they're above it all, or they think that, and in a way, actually, I wrote an email to some people around the time of after Trump's win, and I was just writing about, maybe liberals, we've talked about this before on the podcast, actually, because, early in the podcast, because at first, it was all, Hillary's campaign was all about, to some extent, she did a lot of attacking, but, they go low, we go high. And, that's a thing.
We don't talk about hypocrisy. I mean, she didn't go high at all.
Yeah, right.
Neither one of her races. She didn't go high against Bernie. She didn't go high against Trump.
No, Hillary did not. But what I'm saying is, there is this culture, and I think liberal culture is, ensconced in this idea of purity, of whatever we create as liberals in terms of society and understanding and tolerance and more progressive values and so on, if someone else outside is acting, badly, or they don't understand they're being spiteful or hateful even, then and this isn't something I blame anybody for, because I think it's a totally 100% reasonable rational reaction, but just being closing people like that out and not engaging them in any kind of conversation. It's which I said, it's totally 100% reasonable to do. So if you have a board of directors, and there's someone on the board who is there's a board of liberal directors, and there's 20 people on the board, and there's 2 people who won't shut up about being pissed off about how liberal the board is because they support Trump or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And the conservatives would do this too. You would eventually, if they were disruptive enough, you would write them out of the board. You would get them off the board, and you would isolate them, and you would interpersonally, micro exchanges, you would get them off of whatever said board you're talking about, that I'm talking about. But I think that it's a dilemma for what's going on, because if you end up cutting people out if there's someone who's impossible to talk to, then yeah, you have to cut them out. But if you can, and it's really hard to change someone's mind about politics, so I will acknowledge that, but instead of they go low, we go high. In other words, they go low, we just ignore them and write them out of the board, right? It's they go low, we bring in people who know something about this kind of confrontation, we don't answer their hate with this sort of stonewalling, which is another kind of aggression in a way. And we open up to like say, look, like, you know, we're not going to change our minds, and you're probably not going to change yours, but you're a person, you know, and we want to reach out to you in some way.
Yeah, or I mean, but you get like, is the other side operating in good faith, right? Like, you know, the conservatism in this country hasn't operated in good faith for decades, really. Like, you know, you know, there were principled, you know, like people who believed in limited government and lower tax rates could spur the economy, but they're not around anymore. And the people we're debating with now are either people who have bought into a lifetime of brainwashing, or you know, maybe like you got a few former liberals who got dumped by the wrong girl and now they're conservative. But and then you got people, and then you have the people who are in charge of the party who don't believe any of this shit, who are lying to you, and you're never gonna like have a reasonable conversation with those people, because it was never about having a reasonable exchange of ideas. The best way to deal with that board is if the company just keeps making a fuck ton of money and they really don't have anything to talk about. You know, they can't blame, if, you know, they can't be mad about there being too many liberals on the board if the company's making, you know, crazy profits every quarter. And I think that's the best way. We have to sell the people that don't like liberals on something. We can't just say that it's like, we can't just come at them like, oh, hey, you know, we think that gay people are people too, and you don't, but that's okay. Maybe we can like shake hands and dance or something. No,
it's not like that though. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
that's a mischaracterization. Because what I'm saying is not like bending to any sort of, you know, not it's not kumbaya. It's not like, it's not some false idea of like everything's okay. It's like if it's like working, you know, on the sort of, you know, I mean, it's tough, but it's like this group. It's like this group that I read about, Life After Hate, where these guys are former neo-Nazis, and they got sucked into it, then they got out of it, and now they have a group that was going to be fully funded by the government to reduce the amount of hate groups, but then Trump got elected and he cut the program. But, you know, they are the kind of people who, you know, it's not like the board would have to do it itself. It's like you get people who specialize in like handling like
you want to go get conservative whisperers?
Yes, definitely. Because I don't know, like these conservatives like are like, they're not getting any less angry. They're getting more and more angry. And I mean, they've always been angry, but like they're if liberal America really is in the ivory tower, and it really is like a board that won't accept someone who, like, you know, a little spitefully like states that like, well, I voted for Trump, and you know, I feel like, you know, this is a hostile environment for me, and then everyone like turns their shoulder towards him. I'm saying, but the micro like interactions with people like that make a difference. And it's not anything you can like mandate or I mean, you can if you're a company, but like, you know, I'm just saying that if people don't, it's tricky. I know it's really tricky, and there's probably things I'll listen to this and I'll think later, like, why did I say that? But like, but I do believe that, I mean, it's just like this, it's like the Seahawks player says, he's made a statement, And at the end, his last paragraph, he made a wonderful statement about resisting Trump. At the end, he said, "For all the hate and negativity that comes out of Trump's presidency, I am still hopeful for justice and love to win out as I continue to my efforts with the youth of our communities and engage with this hatred." He's engaging with the hatred. "I will resist the urge to return hate with hate and instead react in love and compassion for those who simply cannot."
Yeah,
That's powerful. Like that.
I mean, it's cute. I can't. I can't. Like, I don't know what that means, right? Like,
You don't know what that means? Have you ever had someone like say something shitty to you and you're like, this person's really suffering, and you're like, hey man, it's cool. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you know.
yeah, but that's not what this is. That's not what this is, though. Like, this is a combination. Like, it's really like I think that the problem with that statement and the problem with the way that a lot of leftists look at it is that you look at these. I think people think that this hate is coming from like an honest place. Like, this is coming from like, you know, like these people
coming from a hateful place.
But a hateful place that's like you said, like there's something that somebody's sad about themselves or somebody, and to a large part that's true.
That is true.
But they didn't get all this out of nowhere, right? Like, this wasn't, they weren't feeling bad about themselves, they weren't feeling down and out, and they weren't feeling like rejected and lonely and all the things that make people be hateful. They weren't feeling that and then randomly decided to focus all that on black people or Mexican people or you know, Muslims or immigrants.
Right.
They were given that.
Yeah.
And they were made to, they were put in economic situations so they would feel these things and be easily led to hate. And then they were sold hate, and then that let them vote against their own interests. It's a whole cycle. And like, when you say like engage with hatred, sure, like you can be like the black guy that goes around to each KKK, and like he has a whole trophy wall of all the KKK ropes he's collected from people he's talked out of the KKK. Great, awesome. Here's a hand. You know, Doug Baldwin, do what you do, bro. Like, I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. I'm saying that I really wish people would stop patting themselves on the back for doing it, because it's not gonna fix anything. It's gonna help. You know, you can see your little individual difference on the ground level, but the stuff that's in the atmosphere, right? The systematic things that allowed this hate to flourish and get bigger. You know, the hate groups grew during Obama's presidency, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is due to the fact that he was a black president, and that was just not that appealing to a lot of people. But another reason why those grew is because of the way the economy went. So many people got laid off. So many people had to go back to get shitty jobs. So many people, you know, even after Obamacare passed, couldn't afford their health premiums. So you had these
but
circumstances.
The average Trump voter was making like above average salary.
Well, those are the people. They might not have voted for Trump in the end, but they sure shit didn't vote for Hillary. So like, yeah, maybe they didn't go all the way to voting for Trump, but when it came time to like vote for Hillary, or even, you know, all the people that were in those hate rallies, they didn't, you know, they're not all middle class, like,
right.
You know,
I think what you know, I disagree, because I think that if you don't do anything for hearts and minds, it's like in well,
I'm saying I want to do something for hearts and minds. I just want to do something material for them.
Yeah, but material is absolutely essential, and I would never ever disagree with that. I mean, doing things at the governmental level is like priority number one, like absolutely. But you can do things at the governmental level, and people will pervert and distort the reasons why their salaries went up because of these programs. They will still have the ire for the left and for the progressives and for minorities that they have. It will still all be there, because that hate is like a powerful thing, and you can't, like, you know, you can't just let that shit burn like a fucking forest fire. I mean, it's like,
right,
if you don't counteract it with some some amount of like this small program was going to do. This ex-neo-Nazis, like they recognized why it was that they had joined these neo-Nazi groups, and they're like a specific case, and there's a much bigger picture, and there's a much bigger history of like racism in America, and a 400-year-old history of terrible repression and brutality, and that makes it like a much heavier, more complicated thing. But all I'm saying is, it in and of itself, like going and talking to people with like, if you're this kind of person, you know, and you know, meeting them where they're at, like not combating them on their ideology, but like getting down to like you know, why they really feel that way, and then sometimes you might find that like their defense go down, and then like you have an in, and then you might be able to change their minds.
Right, but I just feel like that's like trying to solve the healthcare problem with Franciscan monasteries. Like, yes, you're gonna help some people, and yes, that's a good thing. And I'm not saying that everyone who decides to resist in that way should stop doing that. No, I'm not. It doesn't hurt. I'm not saying it hurts. I'm just saying that like we have a tendency to elevate that particular line of thinking above it all else, and I just don't think, you know.
I mean, do we?
Well, it seems like that's the idea. Like, I think that's what we go low. When they go low, we go high. I think that's what that was mainly about. Like, we elevate that kind of thinking to this exalted, you know, like this is what MLK would do. This is what Gandhi would do. This is what...
That's not what I think of that statement, they go low, we go high, at all, though. I think of we go high as like we put up a boundary with them, and we say you stay away, or if you cross it, these are the consequences. And it's treating them like seriously. That's what I think of go, because that's what it means.
Like Arnold Schwarzenegger saying it.
That's what it means in my family. Like if you go high, it's like you say exactly what you mean in an even voice, and you just don't even like. It's about like deal making at a certain point, and you have to like learn how to deal with difficult people by putting up boundaries and being willing to just say, I'm not willing to talk to you anymore, and I'm leaving. Peace, and like you're out. You know, which is important in parts of life, but
yeah. Well, I mean, that's cool. I'm gonna probably keep trolling people on Twitter, but let's. You want to take a break real quick?
Yeah, let's take a break. Let's take a break. All right, and you know, it's all love, right?
Yeah. We'll be back after these messages from no sponsors.
No sponsors. All right, this is Hold This Mic, and it's I forgot to say the date. It's September 24th, Sunday. NFL Sunday.
The day the NFL gave the finger to Donald Trump.
Yes.
You basically escaping from hallucination. Making do with fake is just a new vacation. So it seems so concerned with the scene. I prefer a lucid dream on. Dream of nights like these. Dream of taking flight. Dream of heights like these. Dreams is fucking nice. Get right like me. I'ma be alright. Man, I do this nightly. Yeah. You should tell me what you know. No. Now you should tell me what you see. I think it's gonna be a very nice night. I think it's gonna be like it was all a dream. You should tell me what you know. Now you should tell me what you see. I think it's gonna be a very nice night. I think it's gonna be like it was all a dream. And any dream can turn nightmare. I'm right here looking for my buzz like Lightyear. I'm light years ahead of you cats. There's so much light here. And like here, it's bigger than rap. So I'm alright.